Well, Ontario Premier Kathleen Wynne commenting on yesterday's election, the loss of another female premier in Canada. Our MPs on this panel outnumber those number of women premiers, and that's just been the last 6 months. 5 of the 10 used to be women, and now we go. Okay, let's get their thoughts on this and other issues. Yvonne Jones is a Liberal MP from Labrador. Stella Ambler is a Conservative from the GTA. Jenny Sims is an NDP MP from Delta, BC. Welcome to you all.
Thank you.
So let me ask, I mean, I'm a lowly male, so I don't know how to ask this question, really, but I mean...
Lowly.
Very lowly.
Oh.
All men are lowly.
We're not going to object.
What's going on? Why are so many premiers that are women? We had a really a great progress going forward. 5 premiers and a territorial leader that are women. Now we're down to 2. What's going on, do you think? Why haven't they got any longevity in their reigns?
I think it could be because people aren't voting for them because they're women. They're voting they're just voting for the best person, and so sometimes that's a man, sometimes that's a woman. So I certainly don't agree with Premier Wynne that it was a coincidence. She mentioned the word. I don't think it's coincidental. I mean, I think they're voting for the best person, and so in some cases, the woman is the best premier. I know that here in the House of Commons we're making great strides in terms of electing more women and more women in cabinet, and we have many qualified members of Parliament who are women. 3 of us are sitting right here, but I would say, I would say it's also just it's math. The more women premiers we have, the more former female premiers we're going to have, and so I would like to see one of those former premiers be the Ontario premier after the next election in Ontario, but that might be beside the point.
Jenny, you've got one of the last premiers, probably the one that's going to last the longest. Christy Clark in BC just got a majority last year. What do you make of all this? Is there anything?
In Canada, we are lagging in many ways in female representation in both our municipal, in our provincial legislatures, as well as federally as well. When you look at it overall, there's only about less than 25% of the MPs are women. But I'm proud of the fact that I belong to a party where close to 40% of our caucus is women, and we're not going to stop till we have 50% or more. So there's lots of things that we can do to encourage women so it is easier for them to run. But I absolutely believe that we need to have qualified people, and you vote for the best. But each party has a role to play in who they recruit and who they run for leadership.
Vaughn, just last word to you on this issue.
Well, first of all, I think we obviously need to continue to encourage women to become more involved and more engaged, but at the same time, I think that society is more accepting and looking more to women to be leaders. And what we're seeing here is the example of where gender will never trump ideology when it comes to politics, and this is what people have voted for. But the difference here is that when you look at Premier Manoir, or she was voted out by the people of her province. People like Dunderdale and Redford, they were basically kicked out by their party. So it's a little bit of a different process in terms of how these women have exited the political arena, and I think that warrants some evaluation as well.
All right, enough gender politics. Let's move into the messy business of Commons politics. The NDP had a bunch of satellite offices, 2, one in Quebec and one in Saskatchewan, staffed with people that were out of their political budgets here in the Commons. The Board of Internal Economy said, "Nyeh," to that. You can't do that anymore. I'll go to you, Yvonne, just for fun, because I know where Jenny's coming from.
Hey, come on, listen. The NDP are always full of irony, right? They go out and they condemn people like Jill Doucette, and then they go out and they do this. So, I think the reality is in Canada, once you're a parliamentarian, you get to have an office in Ottawa, you get to have offices in your riding. You don't get to have offices on the taxpayer's bill in other ridings across Canada that you do not represent. This is a way that the NDP is running a political campaign outside of an election, and they're doing it on taxpayers' dollars.
Before the steam comes out of your ears, let me just get Stella to give her thoughts on this.
There's no steam, only facts.
Okay.
Yeah, and the facts are that the Board of Internal Economy found that, specifically said, cease and desist to the NDP. This is part of a pattern. Clearly, the NDP just don't have that kind of respect for taxpayer dollars, because it's just not reasonable to think that members staff and taxpayer-funded employees can work in an office side by side with partisan party employees, and somehow the twain shall not meet. You know, that just makes no sense. And I'd like to know, and it was asked in question period today, I would like to know if you're planning to pay that back, and to pay those taxpayers back for the money that they're
I'll
owed.
ask the questions here, Stella.
Okay. First of all, let's put the facts out the way they are. These satellite offices, the one in Quebec, has been in operation even during Jack Layton's days, and they were approved by the House. We didn't just go out and set up an office. We went to the House, got a ruling through whatever procedures were used, and it was okayed. And now what has happened is, of course, it's become an issue for the party sitting on either side of me, and they went to the Board of Internal Trade, where they actually admitted that the NDP followed the rules. Not only did we follow the rules, we got direction, and now they've changed the rules behind closed doors. If they're not scared of debating this issue, let's have open and transparent Board of Internal Trade. And you know one thing I'm getting really tired of? We have the Internal Board of Trade now doing all kinds of things that actually are limiting democracy. And I'm seeing this is no different than C-23, where it's the Unfair Elections Act, and this was approved. We didn't just do it reading of the rules. It was not reading of the rules. It was actually implementing and following the rules and getting direction first.
But it's wrong, and it should stop.
And you know, it's never wrong to reach out to voters. It's never wrong to reach out to voters. Now that the rules are being changed by the Liberals and the Conservatives working together, we will follow the new rules, but we followed the rules.
Volume doesn't work. Stop.
Let the party pay for those offices.
Those offices were approved by the House.
Yes.
You're going to lose your microphone in a minute. Go ahead. I'm going to move along because there's a juicy issue. The Ottawa Citizen, my friends of the Ottawa Citizen, sort of did a little number crunching and found out 109 MPs have taken foreign trips. Here's a graphic that shows 109 foreign trips, 33 sponsored travel opportunities taken by accompanying a family member, 59 were taken by Conservatives, now 22 by the NDP, 27 by the Liberals, and $11,000 was the most expensive listed. Liberal MP John McCallum went to China. Now listen, I don't understand why MPs have to take these sponsored trips, invariably to nice weather climates, to see what they call sights and cultural experiences of these faraway places. Why on earth are you guys doing that, Stella?
I think you could argue that there's some value. I know that there's some concern, but I think that when, let's say, a Canadian has a concern and says, you know, I wonder why my member of Parliament is doing that, why they're accepting that. Yeah. First of all, it's disclosed you know, this is something it's open and transparent for all parties along party lines. So a Canadian can say, you know, here's how much was spent. And if, frankly, as a member of Parliament, I can't justify that to that Canadian, then that's a different story. I mean, I think that there's some value in those trips. I also want to point out it's not taxpayer money, and that's what I care about.
Yeah, but hold on, doesn't that? Okay, go ahead, Jenny. I'm not going to argue. You guys are arguing.
You know, there is some value to these trips, and you can learn a lot. However, I want you to note that the NDP, even though we're the official opposition, have over 100 MPs, we have the least number of MPs who've taken advantage of this, because most of our MPs are busy working hard in their ridings. Not that some of us who've been on those trips are not, but what I'm saying is that we have to be careful of where we spend our time, because we're elected by Canadian voters. But I went with the Governor General to a trip to India recently.
But that wasn't a sponsor.
No. But I absolutely agree that we have to use our filters when they are sponsored trips.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. I mean, you have to know that if you're somehow feeling obligated to the group that is sending you, then you shouldn't be going. Right. That can be an issue.
I think it's a great benefit to members of Parliament. I think any profession that you work in, the more you can learn, the broader your perspective on issues are, the stronger you're going to be in making decisions. And I would have to look at some of these trips and say, you know, was this one of the ones that added to what we do as a country? And if it isn't, well, maybe it shouldn't be on the list. There can be more openness and transparency around it. But at the same time, It doesn't matter what profession you're in. If you're working at the university, if you're working in the media, if you're working as a member of parliament, having knowledge of world issues, understanding what's happening in the world is a critical component to decision making. And I think that exposure is often very helpful to members of parliament.
I looked at some of the lists, though, going to Turkey to see cultural sites. I'm going, you don't really need to do that to be an MP here when you represent.
The list, but
all right.
I'm just saying.
Moving along, that's it.
We have to use filters.
Use filter, common sense.
Yes.
I have to use filters all the time. All right, thank you. Appreciate you coming on today.